Over the last month, this channel asked why everyone is buying Sire. And then your comments exposed the preamp problem nobody reviews. And while we were filming all of that, Sire itself was quietly doing something remarkable. This year they announced the new Gen series, a refresh of the V3, the V7, the V7 Vintage, and the P7. And when you read the specification sheet next to our last two videos, it is almost eerie. We criticized the fret end lottery. The new Gen ships with stainless steel frets and a smoothed edgeless neck. We criticized the weight lottery and neck dive. The new Gen ships with lighter hardware and aluminum tuners. Your comments criticized the electronics. Sire says the new Gen carries reworked electronics with clearer response and better consistency. It reads like they printed our comment section and worked through it line by line. So this should be the easiest recommendation in this channel's history. Buy the new one, right? And yet the honest answer today is not yet. There are 3 reasons to wait, and hiding behind those 3 reasons is the single best buying opportunity the budget bass market has seen in years. Stay with me, because the last part of this video is where the actual money is. Here is the plan. Part 1. What actually changed model by model in plain language, separating real engineering from catalog poetry? Part 2. The 3 catches in the good news. And yes, there are always catches, including a number on the price tag that changes what this brand fundamentally is. Part 3. The opportunity. What the new Gen launch does to every second generation, Sire on the shelf and on the used market, and why patient buyers are about to be rewarded. And Part 4. The honest decision tree. Who should actually buy new Gen? Who should sprint to the outgoing generation? And who should simply keep the base they already own? A quick honest note before we start. Sire did not pay for this video, nobody sent us anything, no early review units, and the links below are plain product links with no affiliate games. Everything in Part 1 comes from Sire's published specifications and the first wave of owner reports, including one from our own comment section, and we will clearly say what is confirmed and what is still marketing. And because buying right is a method, not a list, the complete buyer's guide, every goldmine and money trap from this channel as one honest map is linked in the description. Now let's get into it. Part 1. What actually changed? Let's take it from the top of the catalog. The V7 New Gen gets the deepest rework, stainless steel frets, and that is a genuinely premium specification. Stainless frets outlast the nickel frets on instruments 3 times this price and stay smooth for decades, which directly attacks the sharp fret ends lottery we documented 2 videos ago. Luminlay position dots, the glow-in-the-dark markers you normally meet on boutique instruments. A small thing until you have played one dark stage. New neck and body profiles with what Sire calls the edgeless treatment, their rolled edges idea pushed further. Aluminum tuners, and this one matters more than it sounds. Tuning machines are the heaviest thing on a bass's headstock, and lighter tuners mean less neck dive and a lighter instrument overall, which directly attacks the weight lottery, catch number 2 from our list. Newly voiced Marcus Super J Revolution pickups, and a streamlined Heritage 3 preamp with push-pull active-passive switching. The V7 Vintage gets the same treatment, but keeps nickel frets for the traditional feel, and the P7 follows the same recipe. So far, this is the good news, and it is genuinely good. And 2 of those specifications deserve 30 seconds of honest physics, because they sound like catalog decoration and are not. Stainless steel frets first. Every time you bend a string or slide a note, the string files a microscopic groove into the fret underneath it. Nickel silver, the standard material on 99% of basses at every price, is soft enough that after some years of honest playing, the frets develop flat spots and grooves. And a professional fret dress to fix that costs more than $100 or several hundred when frets must be replaced. Stainless steel is so much harder that for a typical player, the frets simply outlive the question. It is also the reason some boutique builders charge extra for it. It is miserable material to work with at the factory, it eats tools, and Sire putting it on a production line at these prices is legitimately unusual. And the aluminum tuners? A bass hangs on your strap like a seesaw, and the headstock is the far end of the lever. Every gram out there counts triple, which is why a bass with heavy tuners dives toward the floor the moment you take your fretting hand off the neck, and why players fight it all night without knowing why their shoulder hurts. Swapping brass and steel tuning machines for aluminum removes exactly the weight that causes the dive. These are the two most honest upgrades on the sheet, and neither of them is audible in a demo, which tells you something about who this redesign is actually for. Owners, not viewers. Then there is the V3 New Gen, and here the story gets more complicated because the V3 did not just get upgrades, it got redesigned. The pickup switched from ceramic to Alnico magnets, which is the classic, warmer, more vintage-sounding choice, a real improvement on paper. The neck gets a tinted finish and the same comfort refinements, but the equalizer shrank. The old V3 carried a 3-band EQ with the famous mid-control. The new Gen V3 carries a 2-band EQ and a streamlined 4-knob layout. The mid-control, the single feature we called the reason budget Sires punch above their class, the knob that let a $300 bass imitate instruments far above it, is gone from the entry model. Sire would call that simplification, and for beginners overwhelmed by knobs, it honestly is. But it is also the first time in this brand's history that the new entry model does less than the old one. Remember that, because it connects directly to part 2. And one more piece of good news before the catches. This one from our own comments section rather than a spec sheet. A viewer told us he ordered a new Gen V7 from a retailer that lists actual instrument weights, picked the lightest one at 8 pounds 11 ounces, and reported it arrived set up perfectly and has already survived a string of gigs as his number 1. That is one data point, not a statistic. But it is exactly the kind of data point the second generation launch was missing in its first months, and it deserves to be on the record. Part 2, the 3 catches in the good news. Catch 1, the price, and this is the big one. The new Gen V3 lists at $499. Read that again. The V3, the bass we called the entry door, the bass whose entire argument was a real preamp at $300, now starts at essentially $500. The V7 Vintage with an ash body tops out at $999. The new Gen range starts where the old mid-range used to sit and ends in 4 figures with tax. None of these are outrageous prices for what is on the spec sheet. Stainless frets and premium hardware cost real money to make. But step back and look at what happened. The brand whose superpower was being embarrassingly cheap is walking up market, one price bump at a time. The new Gen V3 at $500 is not competing with beginner basses anymore. It is competing with the used market, with mid-range Yamahas, with Mexican Fenders on sale, and that is a much harder fight than the one the old V3 was winning. And the trend line matters more than any single price tag. When the first Marcus Miller Sires landed around 2015, the pitch was almost scandalous. Features from the $1,000 shelf at $300. The second generation nudged prices up and the internet barely noticed because the value gap was still enormous. The new Gen is the third step on the same staircase, and this time the entry ticket says $500. Every brand that ever won by being cheap has faced this exact temptation: win the reputation at the low price, then spend the reputation at a higher one. And history's not kind about it because the hungry competitor role Sire invented does not stay vacant. Harley Benton is already selling astonishing instruments at the old Sire prices. Yamaha and Ibanez never left the $300 shelf, and their quality control never needed a lottery metaphor. If Sire vacates the budget throne, someone sits on it within a year. That is not a prediction of doom. Premium Sire might be a wonderful business, but it is the honest context for that $499 sticker. You are watching a brand renegotiate its own founding promise in real time. Catch 2, the missing knob. As we said, the entry V3 lost its mid-control, so the cheapest ticket into the famous Sire flexibility now costs V7 money. If the sweepable mid was the reason you wanted a Sire, the entry door just got more expensive by definition, not by accident. And catch 3, the first run lottery. Every lesson from our last 2 videos applies double to a brand new production run. Reworked electronics means new circuit boards, new components, new assembly lines, and no track record. It might genuinely be more reliable. The spec language points that way. But nobody on Earth can confirm it until thousands of these have lived through a year of gigs, sweat, and cable abuse. The second generation's reputation, good and bad, was earned over years of ownership reports. The new gen's reputation is currently a brochure. Our channel's standing rule for any redesigned product, basses, amps, pedals, anything: let the first production year find the problems for you, unless someone else is paying. Part 3. The opportunity. And here is where patient viewers get paid. When a manufacturer replaces a generation, 3 predictable things happen to the outgoing one, and all 3 are happening to the second generation Sires right now. First, retailers clear shelf space. Outgoing V3s, V5s, V7s start appearing with quiet discounts, bundle deals, open box offers, because dealers do not want last year's boxes next to this year's launch. Second, the used market floods. Early adopters who must have the newest thing sell their second-generation instruments to fund new-gen orders. And every extra listing pushes used prices down. And third, perception lags reality. The second-generation V7 did not get worse in March. It is the exact same instrument the entire internet spent 5 years praising, the bass from our first video, with all the catches we documented honestly, and all the strengths that made it famous. Only its price is falling. Now connect this to what we said about resale value in the first video. Soft resale is a catch when you are selling and a gift when you are buying. The bass that loses value fastest is the best bass to buy used, and an entire generation of Sires just started losing value on schedule. A used or clearance second generation V7, with its proven track record, its known lottery odds, its documented fixes, at the prices we are about to see over the next months, is arguably a better purchase than it was at full price with full hype. And the passive second-generation models, the V5 and the P5R your comments crowned last time, are immune to the reworked electronics question entirely, because there is nothing in them to rework. That is the quiet goldmine of this whole launch. The new gen's job is to make the second generation cheap, and it is doing that job right now. So here's the practical hunting guide, because a gold mine you cannot find is just geology. Where to look? The open box and B-stock pages of the big retailers, which is where showroom and returned second generation stock quietly lands with full warranty at real discounts. Search listings for the words second gen, second generation, and the outgoing model names, because sellers desperate to signal old stock label it for you. Set save searches on the used platforms for V7 second generation and P5R, and let the alerts do the work. Prices there move weekly now, not yearly. What to expect? Modest discounts in the first weeks while dealers test the water, and the real numbers once new gen stock physically arrives on shelves and the old boxes are in the way. Patience literally converts to money here. What to check on arrival? Everything from our used bass checklist, fret ends, neck relief, electronics through every knob position, and on active models both the battery compartment and the preamp in both modes, because a discount does not suspend the lottery, it just prices it honestly. And one warning while you hunt. As second generation prices fall, listings above the falling market will sit unsold, and their sellers will relist them with stories: mint condition, barely played, upgraded electronics. The checklist does not care about stories. Buy the instrument, not the paragraph. Part 4, the honest decision tree. Who should actually buy a new gen? 3 groups. Players who wanted a Sire but were scared off by our fret and weight videos, because stainless frets, edgeless necks, and lighter hardware attack exactly those lotteries. And if the specs deliver, the new gen is the safest Sire ever shipped. Working players who buy from retailers listing actual weights, like our commenter did, and treat the first-run risk as a calculated bet with a warranty behind it. And players for whom the newest specification genuinely matters, stainless frets alone are worth real money if you play hours every day. Who should sprint to the second generation instead? Bargain hunters, obviously. The clearance and used wave is starting, and the instruments are proven. Beginners. A discounted second-generation V3 with its full 3-band EQ and mid-control is now both cheaper and more capable than the new Gen V3, An almost absurd sentence that happens to be true. And everyone who watched our preamp video and decided to go passive anyway. The V5 and P5R do not care what generation year is printed in the catalog. And who should do nothing at all? Anyone who already owns a working Sire. Your bass did not get worse in March. The mid-control still sweeps, the neck still feels expensive, and the three questions still apply. Can you hear a problem? Is it a real fault or a sold feeling? And have you done the cheap things first? A new catalog page is a feeling, not a fault. So here is the honest verdict on the new gen. As engineering, it looks like the best Sire has ever built, and it addresses, almost line by line, the exact criticisms this channel and your comments raised. As a purchase today, it is an unproven first production run at prices that abandon the brand's own founding argument. Our recommendation is boring and honest. Let the first-year owners write the reliability record, watch the second generation get cheaper every month while they do, and make your move when the data exists. Either a proven base at a falling price or a fixed base with a track record. Sire fixed almost everything we criticized. The most honest thing we can do is apply the same standards to the fix. Buy the base the evidence supports, not the launch video. Tell me in the comments, have you played a new gen yet? And if so, do the stainless frets and the lighter hardware feel like the fix Sire promises? Early reports in this comment section will genuinely help thousands of buyers because right now, real ownership data is the rarest thing in this launch. And if you grab a clearance second generation deal in the coming weeks, post the price so everyone can see the goldmine opening in real time. Everything is linked in the description, including the buyer's guide with the complete map of gold mines and money traps. Subscribe for honest, no-hype truth about bass gear, and I would be genuinely glad to have you along for the ride.